In the annals of aviation history, some tragedies strike a chord, not just for the loss of lives, but for the peculiar circumstances surrounding them, such as the story of ValueJet Flight 592. This ill-fated flight belonged to an airline known for its frugal ways, including purchasing used aircraft and skimping on staff training. The aircraft, a McDonnell Douglas DC-9, had a history of incidents, and the crew, Captain Candy Kubeck and First Officer Richard Hazen, were seasoned pilots tasked with overseeing the lives of 110 passengers. The stage was set for a journey that started in routine, but ended in an unprecedented tragedy. On May 11, 1996, ValueJet Flight 592 took off from Miami, carrying 110 souls on board. But even before the wheels left the tarmac, there were signs of trouble. This flight, destined for disaster, was plagued by electrical problems even prior to departure. The crew, composed of Captain Candy Kubeck and First Officer Richard Hazen, both seasoned pilots, worked diligently to troubleshoot the issues. The tension escalated shortly after takeoff. In the air, time can be a friend or a foe. For the people on board Flight 592, it was the latter. Just after takeoff, the tranquility of the flight was shattered by an explosion in the cargo hold. A tire had catastrophically burst, causing a chain reaction of electrical failures. Amid the confusion and chaos, a sinister smell of smoke began to permeate the cabin, a chilling harbinger of what was to come. In the cockpit, experienced pilots Captain Candy Kubeck and First Officer Richard Hazen scrambled to regain control of their faltering aircraft. The McDonnell Douglas DC-9, already an aging bird with a string of incidents in its past, was now a ticking time bomb in the sky. Panic surged through the cabin as flames erupted, consuming the passenger area in a maelstrom of deadly heat and smoke. The flight attendants, trained to handle emergencies but not this magnitude of disaster, were helpless against the inferno. Despite the flight manual's advice against opening the cockpit door amidst smoke or harmful gases, one brave attendant breached the cockpit to inform the pilots of the dire situation. The pilots, already wrestling with a failing electrical system and loss of flight controls, now knew the full extent of the catastrophe unfolding behind them. Their desperate request to return to Miami echoed through the air traffic control tower, but the plane was beyond saving. The fire was relentless, consuming the aircraft's systems and control surfaces, leaving the pilots helpless against the inevitable. At 2:13 p.m., the aircraft disappeared from the radar, plummeting into the swampy depths of the Everglades. In the eerie silence that followed, the magnitude of the disaster began to unfold. The crash site, nestled in the heart of Florida's Everglades, presented a unique set of challenges to the rescue teams. This was not a common accident site. It was a vast, inhospitable swamp. The terrain was treacherous, the water infested with alligators, snakes, and other dangerous wildlife. Yet, the rescue team pressed on, driven by the grim task of recovery. The efforts were painstakingly slow and complex. The aircraft had disintegrated upon impact, and the remains of the passengers were scattered across the swamp. The recovery was further complicated by the murky waters and the dense undergrowth, making it nearly impossible to find any trace of the victims. A chilling speculation began to circulate, one that added a macabre twist to the tragedy. Given the location of the crash and the lack of recovered bodies, it was theorized that the victims may have been consumed by the local wildlife. This theory, while grim, was not entirely unfounded. The Everglades are home to a variety of predators, and the crash had occurred in their territory. This was not just an accident, it was a wake-up call. The industry was forced to confront the harsh reality that safety could not be compromised in the name of cost-cutting. In the aftermath of the tragedy, measures were taken to improve the safety of cargo holds and to ensure the proper handling and storage of hazardous materials. The crash served as a stark reminder of the importance of safety in aviation, a lesson learned at a terrible cost. It also highlighted the bravery and determination of the recovery teams, who faced an almost insurmountable challenge in their efforts to bring closure to the families of the victims. The ripples of the ValueJet crash are still felt today, a somber reminder of the price of negligence. The tragedy of Flight 592 was a turning point not only for the airline, but also for the aviation industry as a whole. Prior to the crash, ValueJet was known for its cost-cutting measures, which included buying used planes and providing minimal training to its employees. The crash, however, highlighted the severe shortcomings of such practices, leading to a shift in industry standards. In the aftermath, ValueJet grounded its fleet for several months and struggled to regain customers when operations resumed. The reputation damage was so severe that the airline eventually acquired AirTran Airways and assumed its name in an attempt to distance itself from the ill-fated Flight 592. The incident also spurred regulatory changes. The harrowing circumstances of the crash underscored the dire need for improved safety measures, particularly in cargo holds. The aviation industry responded by implementing stricter regulations for the storage and labeling of hazardous cargo. While the tragedy of Flight 592 is etched in history, its legacy serves as a stark reminder of the paramount importance of safety in aviation.